I knew we'd have to catch up, but how was your spring?
Oh yeah, my spring was great. If a little, obviously the COVID added a real downer in so many ways. But the fact that we were able, I was able to do everything online, lessons and all that, to finish the year. And I just basically picked up my cello piccolo, my 5-string cello,
Oh,
and began to learn all of the partitas and sonatas by Bach for violin solo on that instrument, figuring out how to do it, and it. I've done the whole thing. I've learned every single one of those unbelievable works. It gave me a second lease on life to get to know Bach again from a completely different perspective. It's not that I'm not meaning to learn these things to play them someplace eventually. I don't know, maybe, but that wasn't really the point. It was for me to really, I had the time and the somewhat peace of mind to really to delve into something that I've always wanted to do, but I didn't have the proper instrument for it because I love those pieces so much. And
wow.
when I got my cello piccolo 2 years ago, finally, after years of saving, I was able to do that, and just before COVID hit and everything went on lockdown, I performed all the 3 gamba sonatas with a friend here for David's thing, CMA, and on that cello, on that 5-string cello, which is very close. It's the closest thing to a viola da gamba without being a viola da gamba.
Yes.
So I've had a wonderful, interesting, wonderful rebirth, so to speak, to be able to keep my mind occupied, and in the middle of so many bad news, and it just gave me a sense of there is hope, and learning these things, and putting all kinds of fingerings and so forth, and because it's a very different thing, it also has taught me how to play on that instrument, which is an entirely different ball game compared to the regular cello. It's an entirely different thing. I basically was relearning how to play an instrument.
I'm so glad you talked about your COVID project. And could you just say a few more words about how that cello is different from your regular cello?
Yeah. Oh, sure. So it's basically a Baroque instrument. Obviously, it was basically invented by Johann Sebastian Bach for him to be able to write the 6th cello suite, the last one, the D major. Because if you look at the original, which is the copy of Anna Magdalena's, it's actually lists there the scordatura, which has 5 notes: E, A, D, G, and C. So the idea is that because he wanted to know what was possible on new technology, instruments, and what he was writing for. Is it possible to write something for a 5-string cello? So he asked around. He talked to his friend, an instrument maker, and he said, "Yes, I can make you one. I can create a 5-string cello. Has to be smaller, and so forth. That's why it's called piccolo cello. So it's got an extra string, which is the E string, and it's a much wider. It's a wider neck and therefore fingerboard to facilitate the inclusion of that string. And so, the other thing that I've learned is that 6th suite, I relearned it, the 6th suite on a 5-string instrument. And again, it's an entirely different experience. Let me go get it. so that you can take a look at it from
Perfect.
here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right back. So here it is. And clearly set in the style of a Baroque instrument. Everything needs to be, wider, but it is a smaller instrument. It's what we would call a 3/4 or 7/8. Actually, it's a 3/4 instrument of a cello. So it's been set up with all gut strings. Particularly, the top 3 are handmade by Damian Dlugolecki in Oregon. He makes them by hand. He's a fabulous string maker. He's about to retire, however. So, but the strings are absolutely sensational. But this is the instrument. It's, as you can see, it's a much wider fingerboard or neck, and it's got, obviously the bridge has to also be a little bit wider. And this one I had to get from another maker, because you can't buy a piccolo cello bridge anywhere in the the conventional music houses or retail. They're just, this instrument basically fell out of favor at the end of the 18th century. It wasn't terribly practical, because eventually the orchestras are getting better. After Bach's time, they're getting bigger, rather. And the concert halls are growing, they're getting bigger. And the demand for bigger sound is quite necessary to be able to do these new works, new composers, Mozart, Haydn, and so forth. So this instrument, it's a small cello. It has a very limited range, but it's an absolutely wonderful thing to be able to learn, but it's not very practical. Eventually.
Can you play anything for us, even a scale or something?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
really fun to hear it.
Okay. Let me see.
Oh, beautiful. It has a really much more treble-y kind of
Yeah,
sound.
exactly. So the idea, obviously I would say the main reason I was looking for this instrument, I was trying to get an instrument like this, saving money for years to try to buy it, because they're not actually cheap. You have to, the idea for me was to be able to do the sixth suite, the last suite, and to understand better what it is that he was looking for, to maybe get a glimpse of what it is, what are the differences that you are exposed to between this instrument, which is the original actual instrument that the suite was written for, and the way we've been doing it conventionally with the 4-string instrument,
Right.
which makes it very challenging. And I thought it was going to be rather straightforward, adding an E string and all that. I presumed, wrongly to be sure, that it was going to be a lot easier to do that suite. Far from, that was, I was
Extra
very
strength
wrong.
does not help.
No, it made this experience that much harder. I mean, it was an entirely new thing. I had never tried anything like this before. And with the instrument, our luthier, local luthier here, he helped me to get it. This is actually a Haida cello, which is made in California. There are a lot of very good Haida. Jay Haida makes these instruments, the conventional cellos. They're very popular all over because they're wonderful instruments for the price. My luthier, who is a Haida distributor, he helped me to order this instrument because they had never made it before. They had never made a piccolo cello before. They had made Baroque instruments, the Baroque cello. In fact, they sent me the first time around, after I ordered it, they sent me the wrong instrument. It was a conventional four-string instrument, a Baroque instrument, which was huge, by the way. And our luthier Kruno had to return it and then order the proper thing, which was a five-string piccolo cello. And when it first came, he had to put it together. I had to get the bridge. He made the pegs and so forth, because it was just the raw thing, half glued in, and he had to do the rest. He had to actually finish it, our luthier here. The first thing he did was, because the instrument came without an end pin, the Baroque style, or the Baroque tendency, or shall we say the tradition, is to play these instruments without an end pin, like a viola da gamba. And for 7 months, I tried to play, at 53 years old, I tried to learn how to play an instrument without the end pin. It didn't work. Since I'm fat and old, I didn't have the proper, the leg muscles, the back muscles to be able to do all this intricate stuff and hold it with my knees. I would get terrible backaches and my hands would get really cramped up. So finally, after 7 months of a fair try, I asked Kruno, please put an end pin on there because I just can't do it.
So you finally yelled uncle.
I did.
Wow.
But it doesn't diminish the experience at all. I mean, I just can't play it like that. And many people can't.
Sure.
Many do, especially the younger players. There are some wonderful performers out there who play this instrument without the amp, and they're wonderful, but they're much younger. They're stronger, younger, and prettier young people. That they do a wonderful job of it, but I just couldn't do it. I just had to add an amp in.
They just didn't have as many years invested in the traditional setup as you do.
Let's go with that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and playing and everything. I really I love hearing about it. And I just have a few little questions I would love to ask. And we're trying to find ways to just keep interaction with our patrons, and certainly keep interaction with all the people that we've played chamber music with, that I've played chamber music with for 24 years. And I've known you, I think, about 40 years. Good Lord. It's scary, and we're still friends.
Thank God.
So my first question for you is, do you have an idea about how many concerts that you have played at Chamber Music at the Barn? I mean, not an actual number, because we do so many repeaters, but do you have a kind of an idea?
Well, I was trying to remember how many. I looked at some programs that we've had that I was able to keep. But the very first time I played at CMA, at the Barn, was in 2005 with the Harrington Quartet. That was our first. That was my first time in Wichita, and then I think that I came back 2 years later, I believe, solo or by myself and so forth. And then there was a time period where where I didn't go back for several years until 2000, 2012, I believe it was, where it's been, where it's been like sometimes twice in a row or every other year since then, something like that. So I think it's been, altogether probably about, I would say if you, divide, it's always been like 3 concerts per visit. So it's been something like between 20 and 30 concerts.
It's a lot.
Sometimes it's more than other times or something, depending.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been, but I do remember that the very first time I went there was in 2005 with the Harrington. And of course we came back with the Harrington a number of times.
Right.
I'll
never forget Mendelssohn Octet.
That's exactly right.
And
in fact, that was it. That was the time. The very first concert was 2005 with the Mendelssohn.
Mm-hmm.
It was with Jeff Lestraps and somebody else, 2 other players, 3 other players.
Oh, probably Nancy Luttrell played violin.
I think so, and then you play the viola.
Yeah. You know what I remember about that particular time is that I had you come for our chamber music camp, so you worked with our high school kids.
Yes.
And one afternoon, we decided, or the chamber music gods decided we were going to have a July downpour. And it was very threatening weather, and we had everybody gathered in the barn for safety, although we didn't have a basement. But what you guys did was magical, because you started playing all of the pieces that the students were studying, and you just sat there and sight read them, and the kids would hand you their parts, and that was a real magical learning experience that I never would have thought of, but because it was pouring rain and thundering, they loved that. I remember it was wonderful.
And that I remember that. That's what I wanted to. I also remember that too, because I wanted to remind you that the other thing that we did then, that very afternoon, where it was thundering and I mean the downpour, you're right, was remarkable, which I love, by the way. I love that type of weather anyway. The other thing that we did was, because we were doing the octet, I had also brought with me the parts to the Schubert cello quintet. And we sight read the first movement. I think it was Jeff that played next to me. We sight read it while this storm was also going. We were doing the kids' pieces, and then we decided that we wanted to sight read that first movement. And that was a wonderful, I mean, you're right, the kids were just tickled to death, because the concept of sight reading to them was a very challenging thing, because it's very difficult to sight read in certain settings. But we were talking about that because we were playing their pieces, and what they were, as you say, they were showing us their pieces, and then we told them, okay, here's a piece that we've never played together as a quartet, but I brought the music anyway, just in case, and we showed them, at that point, how it is that one sight reads. What's important about sight reading is not necessarily playing all the notes, but it's keeping as closely together as we can in terms of the ensemble and the rhythm.
Right.
Because we were talking about those issues during the master classes and the coachings, because sight reading to them was very scary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
so
right.
that made it even more special, I felt.
Yeah, and just I'm kind of recalling the sound of the rain.
Yes.
And the humidity in the air, and the lightning and the thunder, and then the lights would flicker.
Yeah.
It was really it was a very cool camp.
I loved it. I loved that.
Do you I guess my question is sort of, why do you think that the barn is a a good place for making chamber music, or why do you enjoy making chamber music there? Whether it's acoustics or people or summer or what?
Yeah, it's a combination of all of those. But I think for me particularly, um, what is wonderful about making chamber music at the barn is the fact that you're sharing with people that you've not played with before, that you may not have been together before as a group or in any instance. You know, I'm in the Harrington Quartet, and when it comes to chamber music, that's what we do. That's, you know, those are the individuals that I'm most closely associated with, and that's, you know, part of our mission. It is our mission here as a string quartet, as a residence string quartet. So the chance to go sometimes when I'm not with the quartet at Wichita, when we're not doing concerts as a quartet there, the thing that I've enjoyed tremendously is sharing music, chamber music, with new people, with new players, you know, with you in particular, and others that I may not have had a chance to play with before or since. I've always felt that the chamber music at the barn was just this wonderful oasis of opportunities to play with other people, and on top of that, really the closeness that we experience to the audience is so energizing. It's so tremendously nourishing as a musician that I've always looked forward to going to Wichita. It's like my second home. I'm not exaggerating, because I've always felt that closeness with that place. I love it out there.
And I think once or twice I've seen you with a cigar and a good book out on a swing near a pond, or am I just making that up?
No. Oh, no. I must confess that I am a limited tobacco user in this summertime only at Wichita, because Wichita has the best weather for cigar smoking. That humidity, the warmth, and all of that, which we don't necessarily get here in the Panhandle. Wichita has this perfect setting for cigar smoking and music. But I love it. It's true. It's a magical spot there. I mean, I know you've been there for so many years, and you know, the setting, the gardens, which is my favorite. I've tried to emulate some of those gardens here in my house. It's difficult because it's an entirely different weather and soils and so forth. But I just go there, and walking at the lake in the back over there, over the bridge, seeing those incredible, I think Bob told me that there are
water lilies, or
water lilies. Yes, the water lilies, and there's another a water, what is it? Water hibiscus, or there's another plant there which is absolutely stunning. I forget the name. At any rate, it's an idyllic environment.
Yeah.
I just love those gardens.
Well, let's see. You've actually answered some of the other questions I had already.
Good.
So I won't be redundant. I have just a couple more.
Yeah.
You've played all over the world. You are from South America originally.
Yeah.
You have and you've played a lot in Europe, and here you are in North America. You've seen a lot of chamber music festivals, I'm sure, participated in.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about why chamber music at the barn is kind of a special, you called it an oasis, or what you think we might have contributed to our community in 24 years of time?
Yeah. Uh, you know, chamber music is the best repertoire. This is the best repertoire, and these are words, they're not my words, but they're words of conductors, soloists, and the like. People that don't belong to a string quartet or piano trio or whatever ensemble, small ensemble. Particularly conductors have told me more than a few times, chamber music is the essence of music, is the essence of the human experience in music, because you are contributing your own abilities, your own understanding of the music to a small ensemble where is the music that comes out of it is a conversational experience, is uniquely human. Chamber music, and particularly as a service to the community, which is something that I'm very familiar with here in Amarillo with the Harrington Quartet. It's a vital activity. It's a vital expression of our culture. Whatever you call a culture, whatever it is that makes your where you are planted special. Wherever you live, in our capacity as artists, chamber music, the experience of a conversational musical activity with an audience, is something that reassures us that there is a tomorrow, that there is hope for our species to overcome these, especially at these times where we are not able to do what we do with an audience because of this pandemic, for instance. Is a clear example of what makes us human. This is the best setting in its tragic, and certainly in its tragedy. It is the best setting to understand what is missing in our lives and what is missing in our community, which is struggling to survive under these terrible circumstances. The fact that there is hope in music. Music is the language of hope. I think it's of vital importance to our communities, be it in Wichita, here, or anywhere. As you've said, we've been in many places in the world where chamber music is part of that dialogue, that human expression. It's something that we cannot do without, and something that the community is, at this point in time, for instance, is desperately trying to get back to.
It seems to me also it is about this communication, not only between the musicians, that is so important as we create something unique to that moment, whether it's in rehearsals or in a concert, but it's also the audience and the way they perceive our communication and the way we can feel their energy and their joy or their sadness or peace, whatever it is. And that, you can't get that sitting down and putting on a CD or, plunking up iTunes. So it's a shared experience, exactly what you said, that we're really missing now.
Precisely. I mean, we can get really, I can get very, what's the right word? I can get pretty primordial in this sense because, humans did not evolve in isolation. Humans did not evolve by themselves on their own. We evolved as a community. We spread it all over the world as a community, not as individuals, not as lonely creatures. So, and this is all music has always been with us from the beginning, from the the moment where the earliest human was able to produce a sound, some sound of communication, besides language. Music was the next thing. And it is at the core of what we are. We are a community.
Mm-hmm.
We don't evolve, we don't develop in isolation.
Right. No
matter what politicians tell you, no matter what anyone else thinks that they know about human evolution, we've always been together. We've always communicated. We've always shared things together. And music is at the core of that. And more so, the small ensemble.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get more basic and human than that.
And intimate.
And precisely, absolutely. It's one of the beautiful things about what we do. The forms of expression we've developed that we can rely on, that we can have hope to be able to continue to develop.
Yeah.
Particularly at times like this, it just puts everything in perspective. What it is that we miss when we're put in a position of extremists.
Yeah.
It is immediately apparent what we're missing.
Well, thank you for that. It's very, very, very true. And I miss you.
Oh, I miss you too. God, are you kidding? I mean, I'm serious. You've developed an amazing thing at Wichita. I'm not just saying this to be solicitous in any way, but it's really it's almost like a family event. It's a family event.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going there to visit family.
Yeah.
And the audience is our family, an extended family. It's always been just a highlight of my summer being there. I feel a sense of renewal every time I go there and perform with you and anybody that you organize. It's just a wonderful thing. It's a family.
Thank you for that.
encounter.
I have one last question. If you were forced to name your favorite piece of chamber music, either that you love to listen to or that you love to play, and it would be something that you could recommend that our patrons perhaps investigate and listen to, even to the point of, do you have a favorite recording of whatever that piece is?
Yeah.
What piece would you say?
Oh, okay. So there are so many, and I'm looking at the one. It was a few years ago, maybe 4 or so, when I went there with the quartet, and you and who was it? I forget who was playing second cello. We did the that work by Arnold Schoenberg, the sextet version of Transfigure Night.
Yeah.
That piece.
Verclair de Nacht.
Verclair de Nacht. That piece is one of my all-time favorite chamber music pieces. It's a sextet form.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, that was absolutely. It was Andy Cole.
Yes, it was. It was.
That was one of my favorite times in Wichita. That we performed that work together. It was so memorable because it was. I've always wanted to play that piece ever since I heard it for the first time at UConn on a recording at the UConn library, the recording library, the old one in the second floor of that building, if you remember.
Yeah.
Mary Lou told me about that recording, about that piece, which I didn't know. And I would be in that library every single day listening to that piece from Monday to Sunday.
And we should tell everybody that this is not the scary Schoenberg that you experience in a very different way. This is an intensely romantic, programmatic work based on a poem, and it is, I will say, one of the most difficult pieces of chamber music that I have played. Not only is every single part difficult to prepare, but it is so, it's like a symphony. It is so full of interaction and counterpoint, and the knowledge that you have to have of everybody else's part is just absolutely mandatory. And you kind of put yourself in the trust of your other players, of your fellow musicians, because you know you can't be a bull in a china closet. You've got to be so incredibly sensitive because it's so intricately woven. But that it's funny, I did not think that's what you were going to say, but I'm so glad that you said it. That's a really good memory.
It's a wonderful memory, and as you say, that work, oh my gosh. And of course, one doesn't get to play it very often. I think that was the second time I ever got to play it as a sextet. I never played it in any other, because there's also the string orchestra version.
Right.
But as a sextet, which is the best. That was the second time I was given the opportunity to perform that.
Wow.
And that was due to chamber music, chamber music at the barn.
Wow.
That's where we do the best repertoire. The best repertoire. So.
Well, Manny, thank you so much.